That's right. Back at it again, Full Custom Hot Dog here, and we're doing another movie review. That's right. We're going to be talking about the film Lucky, which recently arrived on Shudder, a Shudder exclusive here in 2021, and directed by Natasha Kermani, someone I'm not too familiar with. So if you're familiar with some of their other works, let me know. I'm always curious for some recommendations and whatnot, as long as I can cram it into the old schedule here. But what is Lucky about? Well, IMDb tells us a suburban woman fights to be believed as she finds herself stalked by a threatening figure who returns to her house night after night. When she can't get help from those around her, she is forced to take matters into her own hands. And that's pretty on point. So, the basic idea is that there's a killer coming after this woman night after night, and then it becomes constant. She kills the killer's body drops, and before she can restrain him, his body disappears. And then it keeps happening. Night after night, this killer, you can see it in some of the thumbnails here, with a weird translucent face. And yeah, that's the gist of it. So this film's kind of interesting, you know, it drops you in this world with her. It almost feels like a fish out of water story, because her character's very grounded, and one night she hears these sounds of a burglar. She turns to her husband, and she's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's the guy who comes in all the time to try to kill us." And I'm like, "Oh, this is interesting. Maybe she's got memory problems." This is obviously something the husband knows, because she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, the guy who comes in to kill us all the time. You know, we got this, you know." And he starts just kind of putting clothes on kind of casually, and she's just confused, which you rightly would be. And again, it's a cool setup, I think, right? That there's this killer constantly coming after you, and you have no clue why, but everyone else around you does. I liked that premise. And then the fact that they knock it out, the killer's gone, and then it keeps happening. Husband ends up disappearing, and this killer is still stalking, right? Some of my problems with this plot, and I might do some light spoilers, but I will say the ending leaves a lot to be desired here as you get a final unmasking, and I kind of got confused. And I say this because there's a lot of things that happen in this movie that don't make sense from a story standpoint, and I don't like that. I say it like this because I started reading reviews and stuff about it, and they're like, "Oh, it's a metaphor for all of this." And I'm kind of like, yeah, that's okay, but I feel like your movie doesn't always have to have a point or a message, but if you do, I think it should be kind of woven into the narrative. Or else, why don't you just send me an email about the points you're trying to make instead of wasting my time with a movie? The plot is basically the patriarchy. That's pretty much, and that I've gathered that from a couple of the reviews I've read, things like that. But like I mentioned earlier, there's ways to do this to where you have it all sort of connect. And if the point is like this weird Lynchian dreamscape, I feel like it's close to achieving that, but more so near the end. But it kind of just comes off a little incoherent. And the ending with the character reveal is so wild. And this whole idea of all of these people knowing about this killer and being very okay with it and acting like it's normal. There's some powerful messages here in this film, but I think they lose their power because they're not woven into a story of any kind. You know? It's a little too loosey-goosey for me, and I don't mind films that are all symbolic and all that, but the ones that I think I love are usually interwoven with a plot. I was trying to think of movies that are like this, or at least similar in idea, where a film might have a message or be nothing but symbolism, and the first one that popped into my head is Holy Mountain. Just a crazy, batshit nutso movie, and it's kind of easy to either not understand what's going on because there's so much happening and thrown at you, but it's also easy to come up with your own conclusion, I think, too, which makes it a really fun film to discuss. But in the context of the film, there's definitely an overarching narrative, and that's what I feel like is missing from this movie. This movie wants to tell you, hey, here's what women deal with, and it's a battle that's hidden. And that's kind of what I gathered from both the film itself and other critics as well. And the message is received and then spoon-fed to you instead of you drawing these conclusions on your own. At which like I mentioned earlier, the killer at the very end is the patriarchy. And a little bit of a spoiler, the killer's unmasked, and his face shapeshifts into every male character that we've seen. And that's cool visually, but it doesn't really make sense in the narrative. It doesn't make sense that we see a bunch of women getting attacked in a parking garage. I almost thought this was going to link to something like maybe... It's hinted at that the lead character, her name is May. I thought maybe this is going to link to some new psychiatric experiment that's going on with her, because she hints that she cheated on her husband. And I think they say something about how, they had a rough spot in their relationship, but now they're back. But none of this ties into anything. And I feel like it's rough when this quote unquote, this dreamscape or hellscape, nightmarescape, whatever kind of scape it is, isn't scapey enough. Like I mentioned, this feels like a fish out of water story. People call this a time loop movie, but there's no explanation to why this killer's body disappears. There's no explanation to why this killer keeps coming back. There's no reason that the killer should be all of these different people. And like I keep saying, while the message is fairly powerful, I think it would come across much better had it been woven into a narrative. And I don't know why they just didn't even BS that. Because like I said, I thought this was some kind of weird hypnosis thing. Maybe it's a simulation she's going through. But that makes way more sense than what we end up getting, which is nothing. And I like the atmosphere that comes across in here, that she's the only sane person in this world where this is okay. And again, I think that's a powerful message that's being woven here, but I think you lose something when you're not trying to weave that into the story, because you're just getting a bunch of metaphor. And if you're gonna give me a weird, like I keep saying the phrase, dreamscape or something, that scape that you're gonna scape me through, that you're gonna dreamscape me through, has just got to be kind of weird, and even weirder than this. And that sort of hits towards the end, but to me that should have been the whole movie. And I like a lot of the lighting effects here. There's a lot of positive, good stuff here, but at the end of the day, the story is just not there. And just like I don't care about movies that are pointless gore, I don't really care for a movie that's just a message. Give me a plot. I want to talk about a movie to people and say, hey, this shit's crazy. Check this out. This is not a movie I'm going to do that with, but there's some strong things there, and it's such a cool idea of having a character that is relentless, that literally keeps coming back night after night and eventually moment after moment. And I can't believe they didn't take that opportunity to weave it into something bigger. So, enough of my ranting. That's just how I feel about the movie. All around, though, it's a mix. Some people get a lot out of this movie from what I'm seeing in reviews. Again, it wasn't for me. Some great ideas here, some great visuals as well, but at the end of the day, it's not for me. So, of course, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm your host, Full Custom Hot Dog. You can follow me on Twitter. It's Full Custom Hot Dog without the less. Oh, because that is just too long for Twitter. So, thank you all for watching, and until next time. If you like what you see,
I love what I see.
Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you can watch whatever comes next. And if you like the music you hear, you can follow me on SoundCloud and Spotify. Check the description for links.